Hey everybody, Master Econ back here with another video. Today it's not Jank Corner or anything like that. This is just general discussion I wanted to sit down and really have with y'all. Kind of go over free to play Magic and what really you should be doing to kind of maximize the amount of time and effort that you kind of put into the game so that you don't really get screwed over. And as a free to play player, you can get some of those daily store deals and things, and maybe not necessarily, get a lot of wins, but get a couple good ones, save up some wild cards, really build that deck you're going for, um, and then kind of move forward with that. So first things first, let's start off with packs in the store. Packs are 1,000 gold apiece. Okay. Most challenges give anywhere from challenges are either 500 or 750 apiece. So theoretically, it would take you 2 challenges minimum to get 1 pack. You get 1 challenge a day. And then you also have your dailies, your daily wins, which is 250 gold, 250 XP, then eventually diminishing turns all the way down to like 25. And then weekly is kind of the same way. What I always try to do is I try to max out my weekly wins. And at least get a couple daily wins in if I can. Just so I can still get a little bit of extra gold off the top, because 750 plus 250, 1,000 roughly. So, quick math is not my strong suit, and I'm not a math major. Sorry, stupid. But also it kind of is because it doesn't matter. But regardless, what I think you should do is when you get on Magic Arena for the first time or whatever, when you get on Magic Arena, you kind of see, you see that you have challenges down here, right? Well, maximum amount of gold you can get off a challenge is 750 gold. So if you see anything under 750, you get 1 reroll for free per challenge. So always do that. Never stick with a 500 gold challenge unless you absolutely are forced to. I think that's very important. Now, also, maybe ask your question. Okay, Aaron, well, what can I do? Aaron, what can I do with gold? Rather, you can call whichever one. I don't really care. Well, things you can do with gold. You can obviously buy packs for 1,000, right? But if you go to the store, also just remember they have daily deals and card styles. So if there's a particular card that you're like, man, I really want this because I like how the art looks, because the full art looks better, you can just buy it out. It'll be on sale for sometimes 50, 75% off. Like, if we go to decks real quick, I'll even show you guys, like, all of the sleeves that I have acquired just by playing this game. Most of them, other than the pre-order ones for Kaldheim, and then the pre-order ones for Strixhaven, and then the promo ones for Strixhaven, I bought. Like every single one of these. Well, not that one. That one, Sword of Fire and Ice. These are promos. Bought that. Like just all these 3 here. They're like 1,000 gold a piece. 1,200 even sometimes. Even on top of that, there's even more things you can buy in the store. You can even save up gold and you can buy sleeves and like pet bundles, Mystical Archive stuff, which is like a new cool little thing. Which, if you haven't seen another video about Mystical Archive, definitely go check that out. It definitely changes up a story a lot. We're not worried about gems. We'll talk about gems in another video as a pay player. I think it's an important distinction to remember that. Now, what do I recommend in terms of what deck types you should play? Well, there's a few different ones. I think that your starting methodology is what you really should be going for. Is more of a budget style deck, so something with not a lot of rares, because rare wild cards, we're going to assume you're a fresh player and you're playing with pretty much just the starter decks, right? Now, I've been playing since 2018 in like alpha, beta, whatever it was. So I don't have those decks anymore, but I would recommend starting with your base green or red deck, and then eventually you could even combine those into something. And then it comes down to then what format you want to play, whether it be standard, historic, or brawl. So standard is going to be, and I'll even show you what I'm talking about when I say standard. So standard only includes things like Throne of Eldraine, Theros Beyond Death, Ikora, Core 21, Zendikar, Kallenheim, and Strixhaven. So you can play with any cards from these sets. Okay? And I'm gonna be real, they're all pretty good sets in their own right in general. I think 21's probably the weakest, but that's because it just adds some general cards. Your core sets in general are not gonna really shake the waves, so to speak. But see, then if you're like, okay, I want to be able to pull from a larger card pool, that is fine. But remember that you're going to be playing with people who have probably been playing the game a crap load longer than you and probably spent more money on the game than you have. So they're going to have access to a lot of very powerful cards in this set, especially from Kaladesh, Amonkhet, and then the Ravnica War of the Spark area. And Dominaria and everything was good in its own right, so was Ixalan and all that, sure. But I just think in general that, you know, these like 4 or 5 sets here are going to be your most powerful. Kind of pull from. Plus Strixhaven now with the Mystical Archive, it makes it that much more crazy. Now the thing about Strixhaven is nice is that, you know, you can pull from Mystical Archive, you get 1 per pack, and you can then, it gives the newer player an advantage. So it kind of works out in the long run. But we'll go back to decks. So I recommend running like a mono green or like a mono red or a green red mixture. Just because you can get a lot of really inexpensive cards that are commons, things like Arboreal Grazers, which are just free ramp. Essentially, it's a 0/3 that lets you put a mana onto the field tapped. Things like the Ixalan Caryad, which if you control a creature with a power of 4 or greater, you put two of that color instead. Now you can get your uncommons, which are Cultivate. Highly recommend you run that. You know, just your general ramp that you would see in like a green deck. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, ramp, what I mean is essentially is that you can play 1 land per turn, right? Well, ramp is basically saying that no, instead I'm going to be able to utilize that and play more than 1 mana per turn or add more mana to my mana pool than is normally possible per turn. And a big thing to kind of look out for, you don't have to always run 60 card decks. I don't care what anybody says. Run what you want and what you're comfortable with, but at least have 24 lands minimum if you're running green. You could run 26, 27, it doesn't matter. With monocolored decks, you can be a little bit more creative with how you want to do things because you only have 1 color of mana to worry about. It's not like some other decks that I play, like Pentacolor, where it's you don't have like some basic lands and you have like these things that just blot out additional mana, right? Like it's too confusing. So I always tell new players you either do single color or you do dual color to start off. And figure out what you want. Most players are going to run up to dual color only, and that's fine. So things like let me find it here. Actually, yeah, this will work. Groll, which was from War of the Spark, green and red. So they have color combos. Then this is a historic set, but if you want to run historic, I recommend Groll just because it has ramp that you're looking for. So you can run a bunch of green cards in there. You can run stuff like Nissa Shakes the World, which you tap whenever you tap a force for mana, add an additional. Just really big, beefy creatures. You still split the mana how you want, and then you run dual lands, which then have special effects and side effects. So that is personally my recommendation. If you are new to Magic, that is just what I would do. I would start off, plot out a course. You can even go on like MTG Goldfish, and you could look at other stuff, look at other YouTube videos, not just this one. And just really plot out a course and figure out what it is you really want to play. And I can kind of go over the color combinations too, in case people don't really understand, like in terms of like what each color necessarily does. So every color in general in Magic has its own set style and way of kind of how it does things. For white, you're mostly going to see things like enchantments, which they're just a permanent card that has an ability that's triggered at a specific point in time based upon what you do. That's with every deck, though. But for white, it's mostly going to be stuff like life gain, creating creature tokens, creating angel tokens, creating like warrior tokens, which are just general 1/1s, lifelink creatures, destroying creatures that are tapped, making it so opponents can't activate abilities of their creatures. and just a lot of like really like rampy creatures, like a lot of just creature spam at once, or life gain spam, or just angels. That's pretty much what you're looking at. But see, if you add stuff like white black, so you can run black mana with it, then you can add even more angels because sometimes there's more in that mana pool. Now blue was a color that I played for a long time, y'all. And I still do till this day in some regards. And I don't blame people for hating blue. Blue is like that guy that you play at with the poker tournament that has a poker face at all times, and he's sitting on a row of straight flush. As a blue player, your idea is to fuck with the opponent as much as humanly possible and to counter or stop them from casting a spell whenever they can. It's all mind games and trickery. So it's really fun to play, but you're going to piss off a lot of people. You also get things like draw power, removing creatures' abilities entirely, making creatures low-level creatures, like having a be like a 4/4 be a 1/1, etc. Things like looking at the top card of your library, and if it's a specific card, put it in your hand. Just a lot of very beefy blockers, just stuff like that. So that's blue in a nutshell. Things like negate. You have stuff like time warp, which lets you take an additional turn. Things to manipulate your draws if you want to. Things to bounce opponents' cards back to their hands. Like different things called prowess. So whenever you cast a spell, you gets +1/+1 to end a turn. Like whirlwind deal, counter target spell, and then you can mana tax them, which means whenever you counter it, they have to pay that mana cost. And then other things like this are very unique, where you pay mana and make it less health, have more power. So, and then stuff like this, Trophy's Insight. Whenever you draw a card, your first one each turn, so you draw 2 instead. Things like counter spells, and then also get your mana back and tap all creatures. I mean, there's a lot of things. Black, in terms of Magic, is probably going to be, I'm just going to say, it is your most powerful color for removal. What I mean by removal is things that blow up the board and kill creatures. So white has this too. They have things like Wrath of God, Doomscar, Shatter the Sky. Those are just 3 board wipes that exist in Arena that I run religiously in a lot of my decks. Because whenever you play against opponents who have this giant board presence mentality and you want to be able just to remove it in all of its entirety, that is how you do it. Granted, you lose creatures too, but at the end of the day, you don't care if your board state resets if you have less than they do. So black is a little bit more manipulative. What I mean is that your life is a resource. So you will use your life for drawing cards, dealing damage to opponents, removing spells from people's hands, graveyards, exiling them, etc. There's a lot of different cards. So things like Duress. Target opponent reveals their hand, you choose a non-land creature card from it, that player discards the card. So that's a very good, powerful 1-game early turn. I said this in the last video that I made, and the reason why is if you think about it, if that player opens with a turn 2 play, you play Duress, you get rid of their turn 2 play that is not a creature. I mean, at that point, you're at card advantage. Or you're card neutral, rather. Maybe card neutral. But it doesn't matter because you're getting rid of a powerful spell in their box. Now, they might have an ability to pull it back if they're playing like blue-red or anything like that. But at the end of the day, that's just kind of, what it is. And then again, you see some other things pop up. So like Lifelink. Again, Lifelink isn't exclusive just to one specific color, but it's kind of what they're known for. That's just a staple. So Death Touch is another mechanic that a lot of cards are known for in black. Essentially, it doesn't matter how much damage the card is dealt whenever it is blocked. Whenever the creature is blocking with Death Touch, it kills the other card automatically regardless. Whereas Vigilance in white, which I forgot to talk about, there's a lot of effects. So forgive me if I miss one, and let me know in the comments below if I did miss one. I'm literally just running this through my brain as I'm talking about it. Vigilance for mono white just basically makes it so that whenever you attack, you don't have to tap your card. meaning you can still block with it afterwards. And then Flash is another mechanic that's primarily used in blue, which means you can play it on your opponent's turn as an instant. It's basically instants for creature spells. Kind of nice. Things for black as well are things like sacrificing cards, deal more damage, and gain life. And here's your other discard card, Agonizing Remorse. Now, this one's a little different because you pay 2. It's a non-land card from that. Reveals or hints, choose a non-land card from it or card from their graveyard and exile that card. You lose 1 life. So this one's a little different because it provides either graveyard hate or it provides just completely removing any card from the game, essentially. And you lose a life. So again, we don't care about life because life is just a resource with black. And things like Eliminate, destroy target creature with a mana value of 3 or less. Just some very cheap kill cards. Things like Murder, Kitesail Freebooter, which is just take a card from their hand and put it under it so they can't use it until Kitesail Freebooter is dead. Things like, Grasp of Darkness, strike negative 4/4 damage till end of turn. Then you can run things like Ruin Mortality. It gives a card of Death Touch. You make enchantments to have cards have negative 3/3. Stealing opponents' cards like black, red. In general, like I said, that's pretty much black in a nutshell. It's just a lot of creatures, a lot of making opponents sacrifice things, making opponents pick and choose what they keep versus what they don't. And even they have token generation too for zombies. That's kind of important to take note of. So there's a lot of very powerful cards in Magic that were formed from black. I just kind of want to point that out. So red is quick, aggressive, and fast. If you want to make a very quick deck without a very low mana costing creatures, boy, is red the color for you. We're talking goblins. We're talking cards with haste, meaning they can swing on the turn they're summoned. We're talking blowing up board states, dealing like 5 damage to every creature. That is red in a nutshell. I cannot stress that enough. Buffing creatures and giving them trample, first strike. Buffing creatures, giving them haste, discarding cards and drawing into more cards. A lot of high risk, high reward with red in general. And with the Foretell mechanic that was added in Kaldheim, it just made red that much more powerful. Also, things like dealing additional double or even triple damage to things. Red is disgusting. It is super... I mean, they're all good, right? Don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm saying. But if you want a fast deck, you play red. You play red. That's all I got. Red's quick. Green. The thickness. That's it. I'll explain that here in a second, but seriously, the thickness. So, the idea, like I said before with green, is you ramp. You ramp to get out as much mana as possible that you can, whether that be through creatures that you tap, whether that be through spells that allow you to play additional mana per turn, whether that be through this mechanic called Explore, which you look at the top card of your deck. If it's a mana, put it in your hand, otherwise your card gets a 1/1 counter on it. You be beefy like that. You can use green to search the top X amount of cards of your library to search for a creature, throw it in your hand. Or shit, throw that bitch in the graveyard and then fucking play a card from black if you splash black to bring it back. With life, of course. But as you can tell, I'm very passionate about Magic. Buffing your creatures and making them super freaking huge. Draw power if you control a creature with the power of 4 or greater. Having protection against black, because that's pretty much been a staple in Magic for years. And I'll even show you what I'm talking about, because we're going to keep going. We're getting some big creatures here, like, Sandworm. 7/7 for 7. Give me a block with creatures of power 2 or less. I mean, actually, that's a really good common. Not a bad common, actually. I don't hate that. I like the art design on that, too. Kaladesh has always been good. Also, they have things like Great Hinge, which are, enchantment cards that, based upon the greatest power on creatures you control, it costs that X less. Now here's a mechanic that's a little different. So Trample is mainly known in green. What Trample is basically if I attack you with a 6/6 and you block with a 4/4, 2 damage of that is going to your health. That's basically all that means. So you didn't eat all the damage, so the leftover damage is coming to you. Then there's things like Nyxbloom Ancient, which whenever you tap a permanent for mana, just add 3 times as much. Whenever you cycle Whenever you cycle to a Rex, put a trample counter on target creature you control. What else was I looking for? There's a particular one. So you can get hexproof and haste even in green, which is crazy. But that's not what it's mainly known for. This right here. Whenever Thorn Mammoth or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Thorn Mammoth fights up to one target creature you don't control. So what that means, fights, is that if you have a creature on the field, I summon Mammoth, I can then choose it to attack your creature instead of you just choosing not to block, meaning I kill it. The damage still happens, right? So if like Death Touch hits it or whatever, they both die. But it's basically a way for green to kind of get around your field and really pick and choose and what they want to destroy. So because that's really good. Also, Giant Kitty. +20/+20. Yeah, deal with that. 7 mana. But right, that is pretty much it, y'all. Let me know in the comments below, seriously, if I did miss anything. But as a free-to-play player in Magic, I think that in general, just knowing your color combinations, knowing how to do challenges, knowing what's important to do, and just paying attention to your daily deals, because sometimes there's packs in there for like $7.50, which is just a challenge. So don't miss out on that. You don't have to play every day if you don't want to. I don't play every day. Sometimes I only play like twice or 3 times a week. I'll just get on, let all my challenges stack up, re-roll them all to make sure they're 750 gold, and then do them. I did that for a long time. I will explain in another video like why I think spending money on this game it's not like a bad idea, but not really a good idea either. And I'll talk about that later. I don't think it's bad necessarily, but we'll talk about it later. Still, all, thank you all for joining me today. I appreciate you spending the time out of your day to sit down and listen to me rant for like 20 minutes. But I hope this video was informative, so just let me know. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.